Hi everyone, this is Howlock and welcome to another Java tutorial session. Today I will be discussing the keyword final. Okay, so I'll start off with some code and I'll discuss some of the interpretations regarding final. Okay, so let's start off with the simple stuff first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this is my old setup from the previous tutorial. Okay, so I have my superclass and I have my subclass here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is public void. I'm just going to create a method. Okay, so there we go, and I already have my static import there. All right, so that's fine. Now I'm just going to print this out. And instead of using the dot operator, I'm going to use the hash symbol, okay? Yeah, so to avoid confusion. All right, so there it is. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to override that method, okay? Now I want to get rid of the super because it'll be just calling this. Okay? What I want to do is actually print out subclass. Okay? Again, the hash. All right, so that's fine. Okay, and automatically annotated with override. Okay, now if I actually place final here, okay, final you recall with variables for a primitive type you can't reassign it, and to an object type you can't reassign a reference. Okay, now with respect to method, the keyword final prevents you from overriding. Okay, so it is you're saying that it's explicitly final. Okay, now with classes as well. All right, if I put final here, you're going to notice over this side that it prevents you from inheriting it at all. Okay, and final classes, or classes declared as final, all of its members are also considered final. Okay, so you can inherit from a final class. And an example in the Java API is the string class. Okay, why would you do this with a final class? You just want to prevent someone from inheriting and changing the actual uh, uh, changing the class and changing the design of the class. So if you actually created a class and you intend the class to be used a certain way, you don't want someone to inherit it and change the entire design or its purpose. Okay. All right. So now let's get rid of that. Okay. So all right. So some people actually say or argue that private members are implicitly final. To me, private members are actually hidden. They're not final. Okay. Um, now another thing that comes up when we talk about implicitly final is our static methods. Okay. Some argue that static methods are implicitly final, and again, to me, I just believe they're hidden. Okay. So let's go into that. And in a previous tutorial, I actually showed this in code, but since we're talking about uh, uh, members being implicitly final, I'm actually going to redo the code. Okay, so let's get started. Public static void. Okay, I'm just going to call this static method. All right, and I'm just going to print this out. All right, so let's do that. And super class. Okay, now I'm going to use the dot operator because it's not so confusing now. Okay, now I can't really override it. Okay, if I try to override it, it won't see it. Okay, so if those people argue that yeah, it is implicitly final, fine, right? But look, I can do something like this. Okay, I can manually type it in. Okay, so I can manually type it in. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, and static method. All right. Now, if I do something like this, well, remember, all right, it won't allow me to do that, right? It has nothing to do with this override. Okay, so if it's implicitly fine, I wouldn't even be able to do this. Okay, right? So to me, it's actually hidden. So now how do I demonstrate that it's hidden? Okay, so let's go to main, right? So I cleaned this up a bit from the previous tutorial. I have a superclass here, okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the method, all right? So it should print this out right here, all right? And now I'm going to also, this may be a little strange, but I'm going to print the static method, all right? And it should print this out, all right? We can call it with the capital letter as well, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to keep it that. Now, what I'm going to do is actually do something like this. Let me just call it SS class, okay? I don't know how to name it any other way. But now, all right, you notice that I'm using this, some polymorphic behavior. Okay, so I'm assigning a concrete type to its super type, okay, which I can do. All right, so SS class, if I call method, all right, we're going to expect, because it's overridden, it's going to call this, okay, even though its type is super class type. All right, we expect it to call that. Now, if I do the same with static, all right, again, if it's overridden, okay, it should print this, all right, but watch when I run this. Okay, so I'm going to run it, right? So notice here that the first two we know is straightforward. Okay, they're the superclass type, and it's the object itself is actually superclass, so no surprise there. Superclass method, superclass dot static method, right? So and right here, okay, so we see the third line here. This is polymorphism at play here. Okay, but look at this last line. Okay, we've actually saw some, this is a strange behavior because when a method is static, right, static binding occurs. So it will be compiled at runtime, and what it sees, okay, what it sees is the type, okay, when it's compiled, and it sees superclass type, superclass, well, SS class, this object as a superclass type. So what it does when it prints this, all right, superclass dot static method. All right, so polymorphism is not in play here when it's static. Okay, static binding will just ignore polymorphic behavior. Okay, so so getting back to the discussion, okay, it is hidden. Okay, because what we see here, okay, static methods declared as static are hidden when a subclass inherits from its superclass. Okay. However, it's not implicitly final because we can actually do something like that, right? It looks like we're overriding it. Okay. But we're not really overriding it, right? But we're allowed to actually have a method with the same signature in the subclass as in the superclass for static method types. Okay. But for final, if I put this in, all right, then it would not work. Okay, so all right, so that's to show you that static methods are hidden. Okay, I don't believe it to be implicitly final. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.